it's Jen Suzuki, and I'm in the industry. I meet some of the greatest leaders out there, dealer execs, dealers, GMs, and I'm bringing them in the studio to talk to me about what's making their business pop, what's accelerating their growth. I'm sharing my own personal strategies for your sales teams, so I'm ready to get after it. Are you? Welcome back, listeners. I'm excited to welcome Cliff Banks. He's the founder of the Banks Report and AUTOVATE the AUTOVATE conference. He also has a podcast, and he's got like 30 years plus in the automotive industry, probably 20 more just as a journalist. Does that sound right, Cliff?
25.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I hate when people ask me that. I'm like,
I know.
oh yeah, no, I've been around.
Yeah, I'm going on 36 years now in the industry, so yeah.
36. Man, time flies.
No, I know.
Yeah, I don't actually like to count back that far, but yeah, I guess you and I both got started in our early years.
Yep.
Well, you know, I always enjoy listening to you. I especially loved your podcast because, you know, you have this very cool, collected demeanor, and you know, you and I have known each other for a long time, and
Yes.
I always respect your opinions, and you're just a wealth of knowledge. And you're so easy to talk to, and thank you so much for taking the time to spend with me, because I see you out there. You know, you always have these great guests and people that you get a chance to collab with, and you know, just all of our industry leaders and hitters out there. What do you think about the Amazon Hyundai partnership? What do you think that means to dealers?
Yeah, great way to start it off.
Well, you know, I don't know. Yeah. You know, when they first launched it, it was kind of like, wow, okay. You know, because this has been talk in the industry for a long time, that direct-to-consumer model sort of a feel. I mean, they definitely aren't trying to bypass a dealer.
Right,
I think Hyundai's very pro-dealer. But anyway, what are your thoughts?
All right. Well, I'll go back to 2018. Well, actually, 2016. I wrote my first article really about Amazon in automotive and Hyundai, because they had a relationship that was, you know, I guess really started with Dean Evans when he was the chief marketing officer at Hyundai. We all know that name.
Yes.
You know, talk about going back in the past. But in 2018, you know, they were doing some more things, and I wrote a report, it's still on the Banks Report, about the play being more of a digital advertising play for Amazon rather than a retail play. And what was going on at the time, Google and I'm getting out. Anyway, there was a huge they were missing out. Amazon was not getting a they were just, you know, not really part of the whole digital advertising frenzy that was going on, and there were billions of dollars that were flowing through the other two companies. And so Amazon decided to make a play there, and the automotive play was just a part of that overall company strategy. Now they have done incredibly well at grabbing market share and boosting, growing that business over the last several years now. And automotive has been a part of that. Now they we were hearing rumors in late 21, 22. I'm going into 2022 that they were working with the manufacturer at building something, at launching something. And in fact, I had told the attendees at AUTOVATE in December of 2022, predicted that we would hear sometime within the next several months an announcement from Amazon. And I just said, look, you know, all the headlines are going to scream that Amazon's getting into automotive retail, Amazon's selling cars. And I said, don't buy into the hype. It's not what's happening. I said, some of it is Amazon learning the retail space, but it's also a bigger part of their trying to grow their digital advertising play, and automotive presents some significant opportunities for them there. But to do that, they have to build out certain things and get into the retail space at some level and start partnering with dealers. And I think that's exactly what's going on. I think if you get them in a corner or privately, and I'm putting words in their mouth, I think, but they will. I think they will agree. They would agree that the retail space does not selling cars. Let me put it this way: selling cars does not present a significant enough profit opportunity for Amazon to really get involved in. There's not enough margin to take from the dealer. There's just not enough margin. And so what's next? Well, it's the digital advertising play is where the margins are, and that's where the billions of dollars are. And so if you think about, the number of automotive transactions, you think about the number of customers that are shopping daily for vehicles, you think about parts and service and other aspects of it. They can, there's from a data side, it's really a data play to help them grow the digital advertising play. Now, I think they're building the ship as they're going. I'm not convinced that what we see today is really where it's going to end up. I think what's happened is they've confused the marketplace. They don't fully understand automotive retail. And I mean, you're on the, you're in dealerships every day. You're probably working with dealers that are dealing with this or are trying to figure it out. But Randy Parker, talked at before an ADA at the AFSA conference and laid out, look, we have only 200 dealers. We need more dealers on board. And Randy Parker is the Hyundai CEO. And he said, look, we need more dealers. We need more bankers. They don't have enough banks involved to provide funding on the, the lending side. And the reason is, I mean, I think banks are looking at it with some skepticism because right now it's a subprime customer. And you have that issue. Plus, I think banks are trying to figure out, the data and who's in control of the data. It's just, you want to be careful, obviously as a lending institution. Dealers are careful because they're seeing right now there's not any profit in these Amazon deals. So that's a challenge. But you have large groups. I mean, Sonic Automotive is really going all in, but they understand. I mean, there are some significant challenges. And I think Hyundai's being very open and transparent about what those challenges are. And I think in doing so, they're telling, basically sending a public message to Amazon, look, we got to get these things fixed. I mean, the lending side, the trade side. So we'll see. To me, the bigger play for Amazon in automotive, really, I'm more intrigued about the whole data side on AWS. I'm less concerned about the retail side. I mean, that's to me, again, that's an advertising play, but I think the real intriguing play is on the AWS side and what they do in terms of how they are moving the ball forward with connected vehicle, Alexa, integrating with the vehicle diagnostic systems, and then what they can do, even tying into Reynolds, CDK, Cox, and those kinds of plays, and with the manufacturers. And I don't think they know yet what that looks like, but to me, there's huge
something there
or significant opportunity there.
That really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because the connected car, that's I know you've been talking about that for some time, and it's definitely that's part of the future.
Yes, yeah.
And I can definitely see Alexa integrating into a vehicle. There's so many needs for it. I can't tell you how many times I wish I could scream out to Alexa because I'm just so used to that technology in my household.
Right. I mean, we're almost there. I mean, we bought a 2025 Equinox, and it's just fascinating seeing with the Chevy app. Well, not even just the self-driving, but the vehicle diagnostics and and connected to the Chevy app, and knowing when you need the oil change, knowing when the tires are bad, just and at some point you're going to integrate the voice AI,
of course,
to the vehicle diagnostics, and then I've talked about this for years, but integrating that into the dealership service
Yes.
appointment tool.
Yes.
And then the supplier, the parts department.
Mhm.
Um, wow. I mean, you think about the customer service experience that you can
Mhm.
create, and then the vehicle's talking to you. Now, manufacturers are going to push the envelope on that in terms of bombarding their customers with ads. I mean, we're already seeing it with Stellantis. I mean, their Chrysler vehicles are Jeep vehicles that are getting pop-up ads on their Uconnect infotainment on the screen while they're driving. I mean, you, I think we have to be much more intelligent and rational about how we approach some of that stuff from the manufacturers. But again, like I said, they're going to push the envelope and see what they can get
Sure.
away with and what customers are going to put up with. So there can be a lot of stops and starts, and but I think we're in a new world, new era
Yeah.
of technology, and AI is certainly pushing some of that forward.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I also feel like with anything, especially with tech, you just have to start somewhere. And then you react how the customer reacts. You can't even
True.
build it for them
Right.
because
Right.
you think they want one thing, and then how do you know? And
Yeah,
that's how
I
you
know.
build these products
Right.
is after you've
Right.
executed them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm kind of intrigued too. Just, I mean, it may sound like I'm denigrating or downgrading or beating on the Amazon retail or dealer relationship. There's a lot of things that it's going to evolve and they have to work
Hmm.
through. But I think there's some smart dealers that are involved. I mean, the Sonic guys, uh, Flow Automotive out of North Carolina. I mean, they're closely tied to it. Um, so it's going to be interesting to see what it ultimately looks like um, over time.
Yeah. Well, I think probably, I don't know. Have you had dealers express concern about it? Because
Oh,
I think,
sure. Oh, for
look, you
sure.
just gave us like a whole angle that's probably the play. I mean, I'm more
Yeah.
willing to side with that than,
Yeah.
oh, they're trying to disrupt,
Oh, yeah. No, they're not.
the
Yeah.
buy
Yeah.
process. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
No, they're look.
Redefining sales
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
redefining how consumers engage, you
No.
know.
No. Yeah.
Hmm.
uh, I think that's what I'm saying. It's a bit, when I say confusing, it's a bit messy with how they're going about. But these things take time to evolve. But I'll tell you, we've seen Google and Microsoft
Hmm.
over the years both try to get involved in that automotive retail space, and
Right.
and just hasn't worked
Hmm.
um, at any significant level for them
Hmm.
multiple times. So I think we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, you mentioned, us starting to see more AI in vehicles,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm sure if you were at NADA, it was all over the place. We knew that was going to be an explosion.
Yeah, I even did. Yeah, I was on stage with one of the execs from DAS Technology,
Hmm.
talking about, and I think it was more of a rational perspective on AI. I I'll tell I talked to a couple of dealers who both told me during an ADA they were once said, I'm on my third AI related company, and another one said I'm on my fourth, and nothing's worked like they've promised.
Right. I hear that. And I actually see that,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
actually have to work with these products, and yeah, some work better than others. But AI, it's
yeah.
still in its infancy stage. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
it's actually surprising to me how many people still aren't very familiar with the technology. And it's not like it actually, came to the came to the table. It's been around for over a decade. Like I work with Lot Links, they sponsor my podcast. I mean, they for me, they were like the OG of VIN level marketing and
Oh yeah,
leveraging
the whole
AI
machine. Yeah,
machine learning.
yeah.
Been around a long time. But, the thing is it's a term now, and everybody's got it, and it's all becoming this primary feature in their product, but it is still so new. And I think sometimes people abandon stuff too soon. And what I oftentimes find myself saying, well, because you get frustrated, you want it to do what you want it to do, and you want it to do it now. And the truth is that, the technology is still so new. I mean, give it 3 years and, we'll probably be there, but it's a learning curve in a lot of cases. A lot of times I'm saying to my clients, just, you know what, look, good on you for integrating, be open-minded, be looking, hunting for the best tool, try the tools, try everything. How will you navigate what works, what doesn't work, or what to ask? When you don't want to be blindsided in 3 years and you don't know nothing about nothing and you haven't been part of the journey.
That's true. I mean, it is challenging though when you become an early adopter. And I was one of the early ones on ChatGPT, the pro version. When I say early, went after it launched. I mean, there were some companies that were working with ChatGPT long before it was public, and so I was testing it, and I wanted to see. It sounds incredibly vain, but I often have to Google myself because there have been times I've been
misquoted,
not just misquoted. I've had a couple of newspaper reporters totally make up interviews and quote me that had never talked to me in the past. I've had people steal, rewrite, take my articles and write them as their own. So, but anyway, so I'm asking ChatGPT about Cliff Banks, and it came back with that. And this was a couple of years ago now, that I was a reporter for automotive news, and I've never written for automotive news. So I challenged it. And it came back with a URL. It took the automotive news URL architecture, took their staff page, and inserted my name in it. So I clicked on the link, and of course, my picture doesn't appear in the staff page, but it just says not found. But the website was there. Everything was there. It made up a link, essentially. Created a false link
with this platform.
Right. Now that was a couple of years ago. I think it's getting it's probably getting a lot better. I know it is, but still, it's when you're an early adopter, you experience those things, and then you start writing it off or start thinking, well, I can't trust this.
Exactly. But at the same time, if you use it more frequently, you'll notice that, it tends to nail it more times than not. But, it's so funny that you say that, because I actually did that today, because I'm constantly working with ChatGPT. So I asked, what company does Jennifer Suzuki own? And it's funny because I've actually probably still got it in my history here. Because it lied, and it was so weird. I was what did it say? I can't remember the company that it said. I have to go back, and I don't know. It said something like it was not my company. It was a random company, and it was the same thing. So in messing around with AI myself and trying to build out tools over the last few years, one thing I've noticed is a lot of hallucinations, they call it. Or and you can't always trust that the data is 100%. Then I think that when you see this integrating in the dealership, at whatever level it is not always consistent, and then people get crapped out and they want to throw in the towel. And
you can ask you tomorrow. You could ask it tomorrow what company Jennifer Suzuki owns, and you could come up with the right answer. And the next day you could come up with a different answer. So to your point,
the problem. Yeah. But, a lot of products out there. And, for example, I was in a dealership last week, and I'm listening to their recorded calls. And I oftentimes do this. Well, I noticed that they've got an AI tool, and usually I can spot it. This one, was becoming, it's a different company than the one that I typically see out there. And I did notice it was a lot more human. And then I noticed that it's trying to be a human. And I think that's the problem with stuff like this, is that if people know, okay, they know. And then they get frustrated if they think that you're trying to pretend.
It's funny you say that. That's exactly what I said on stage at NADA. On the live stage. I said, one of the things that, to me, what I would caution dealers and vendors is, don't try to trick your customers. Just be right up front from the beginning.
Be right up front.
I am your friendly, hey, I'm Cliff. I'm your friendly bot from ABC Motors, and I'm here to help you.
I'm here to schedule your appointment.
And hey, I can't answer that, but I can connect you with a representative.
Say live operator. I agree. And I think that a lot of times dealers are looking at these tools to solve some of their biggest problems, and they
Right.
can. But, it's not going to be always consistent. There's definitely a lot of problems. I see a lot of people bail from these tools for many,
Yes.
many, many reasons.
Right.
But I always go back to them and I say, look, I mean,
Try.
your
Be
best, your,
patient.
your
Keep
best to
trying. Yeah.
get in the game,
Right.
work with these companies. I mean, this is the future. AI
Yeah.
is going to be a heavy, heavy piece here in
Yeah.
daily operations and on so many levels here
Right.
very shortly. And you don't want to be left out in the cold.
But man, it's so much better if you have a vendor that's going to be upfront
Yeah.
and explain, hey, we're working through this.
Oh, because they're
I
all
know. Yeah.
experts, right?
Yeah.
Upfront
Yeah. Yeah.
experts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a miss for me too.
Yeah. 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 So,
Yeah, nobody's an
yes.
expert at this
No.
technology.
No.
I mean,
No.
it's just that's the thing, and I do think that you have to educate dealers right up front. When you are a vendor who's integrated this into your product, you don't have to be an expert. You don't. You could be an
Right.
expert at whatever it is that got you on the map.
Yeah.
But you're trying to stay relevant, and you're trying to, again, solve dealers' problems. And when you go out there and you ask them to be a partner, a true partner, and really, getting this thing to work well, I think you're being honest about the fact that
Right.
it's not always going to be 100, and we don't want people to bail either. We still have to, count on these companies to
Right.
create the efficiencies that we're so desperate for. I mean,
Yeah.
every business is looking for productivity, efficiency, cost
Right.
cutting. What do you think is
Right.
going to do that?
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I over the last couple months, I've asked several CEOs what the biggest challenge is regarding AI
Mm.
for them. And I think every single one has said the pace of
Mm-hmm.
innovation is that you build something today and it could be obsolete tomorrow. And it's happening so quickly that by the time you get something launched and rolled out, someone else has something better. It's just
That's the challenge.
and AI has just exponentially sped that dynamic up, that phenomena up. And so I think it's an exciting time for sure.
Mhm.
It's uh, probably the most volatile. When I say volatile, and I'm saying that in a good, but the most volatile time that we've ever seen in this industry.
Mhm.
Probably even society. And so I think it's how do you pick those winners and how do you pick the right players? I think it's you got to have an open mind, and to your point, you have to be patient too and let companies develop and work
Mhm.
through some of these some of those challenges.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, well, from my experience, you invest all this money in developing something, and as you mentioned, the next thing you know, there's something better out there, and you're
Right.
either going to adapt or you're going to continue to pursue
Right.
what you've already done
Right.
and hope that, you're not totally outdated, but if somebody else comes in after you and they're going to continue,
Right.
they're going to get the better of the technology. Some
Yeah.
people say just wait 3 years and then get into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you can't do
Well,
that either. It's like
right. And I think for entrepreneurs out there, vendors who, I think too, it's going to change at some point, even the way we place valuations on companies. And, I live in that whole M&A world, but I think it's
Mhm.
also going to change this whole concept of SaaS development and software. It's going to upend it, and it's going to happen very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's not just dealers. I think even the entrepreneur, the vendors are, living in a completely new world and new frontier right now.
Yeah. I totally agree. And that poses, new challenges too. And um, I mean, all I know is I see a lot of tools in the dealership, and people are very confused. There's a lot of overlap with tools.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
And it does cause a bit of kicking it to the curb. And then when people notice that they're spending a lot of money on products that they're not even using, or they don't know how to use them, I think it
Right.
sets us back as an industry too. This is why
Yeah,
I'm such an
it
advocate
does.
of
Yeah, it does. I mean,
hang in there.
yeah. To your point, You bring up it's an interesting point. We have, ever since I've been in the industry, I mean, certainly as a journalist, it's always been a complaint that there's just too many tools, too many products. It's messy.
Logins, too many
It's too
windows, too many
fragmented.
dashboards.
We need, we need the friction removed. We need, um, we need easier access to data. We need, you name it. I mean, I say this: be careful what you wish for as an industry, because if we were to get to a world in which it was seamless and frictionless, I think that really hurts the retail model and the necessity for dealers as we know them today. It would take it's going to take a couple of huge players. When I say huge, I'm talking from outside automotive, that are going to come in, and if they solve that issue, then really you really kind of solve the whole. You do away with the need for dealers. If I'm a car dealer,
Mhm.
I want the messiness. I want the friction, because if I'm building the right organization and the right team, I can beat the dealer down the street or across the street. I think I can be better. I
Mhm.
can do a better job. And that friction and those obstacles, or all those challenge, those are just obstacles that are for other dealers. I'm not gonna, it may be difficult, but the fact is, I like the fact that there are dealers who are not good, not efficient. I like the fact that there's dealers that play fast and loose with how they engage with customers. I like the fact that there are dealers that aren't responding to customers in the right way. I love that. If I'm a dealer, I love that, because it just means more opportunity for me to be better and to steal share.
Mhm.
And I think the smart dealers and the successful dealers look at it that way,
Mhm.
and welcome that. It's American capitalism at its purest form, in a lot of ways. I mean, and let the best win. The best players win. If we come in and commoditize everything and make, streamline everything, and everyone has to play by the same standards, and well, then okay, it just lowers the it just lowers the bar. I told this years ago, GM, and this was the North Central region for General Motors came up
Mhm.
with the idea of the GM e-commerce summits. You've probably participated in that.
I did.
Yeah. So I hosted the first 4 that were ever done. I emceed them for
Mhm.
General Motors, and this was back in the day when they dictated that every GM dealer had to have a Cobalt website.
I
Rest in
remember.
peace, Cobalt. I mean, no, but and the in the pre-planning meetings, the conversation came up, and I said to them, and it was Steve Hill, who I think now is over in China, but he was the one that was his brainchild, essentially. And I said, look, dealers are going to ask about this strategy, and I'm going to be upfront. This is my response. There's a lot of dealers in the GM family that are very bad at responding to leads. And this was the case back then. And I said, and GM is trying to figure out a way to create some standardization of, success. And
Mhm.
sadly, they're playing to the lowest common denominator. The dealers that have done phenomenal and have invested money and time, and have become really good at building out their processes, and they use other vendors, they're the ones that are getting punished. And I said, and they didn't disagree. I mean, they said, no,
Yeah.
that's fine. Go, you're fine answering it that way. Um, so I think they recognize it, but I think that just reinforced to me that, hey, if I'm a good dealer. I welcome the incompetency and mediocrity of others.
Yeah, creates
And
competition.
yeah, I mean, we see all the time, yeah, that the industry, everyone complains about the industry and all the leads are, we take too long to respond to leads, or we're bad with customers, or the industry is dirty. The car dealerships have a bad reputation. Okay, great. I'm, I'm going to be the guy out there with a great reputation in my community and with
Right.
my customers. And I'll let the rest of you numbskulls figure it out. But so I think we see the smart dealers and the really successful dealers operating that way. They might not verbalize it in that, but and I think it's counterintuitive. But I think it's a counterintuitive point. But hey, bring on that messiness and
Yeah.
the
The fragmentation
yeah.
of retail.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have to tell you, that was a banging insight. Because I think sometimes, I definitely don't think on those terms. But man, you just really cracked open the egg for me, because everybody always talks about making it easier, streamlining, one system, one login, and it's like, gosh, you would wipe out like all of the people that
Yeah.
make up
Well,
automotive
yeah, no,
if we
and you
actually
could,
did that.
and we would, look, there's something. I mean, can we make things easier? I'm not saying let's not make things easier. One login is great. I mean, I, uh, but I think you know y- a world in which there's no friction and is seamless in a way. I mean, the
There's no
manufacturers,
innovation with that.
there's no innovation. You rip away any need for entrepreneurialism,
Exactly.
and how many dealership people. I mean, you go down the list and look at the number of companies through the years that got started either by a dealer, funded by a dealer, or started in a dealership, and it's mind-boggling. I mean,
Yeah.
and not just the dealer, but the tech world, and it's created unbelievable wealth
Mm-hmm.
for people, and we would lose that whole dynamic
Mm.
of this, that's so relevant in this space, both at the tech level, entrepreneur, but also at the dealership level. You have
Mhm.
it is still a local business, and despite the consolidation going on, a lot of it is
That's
still family, families that are
mhm.
buying stores and adding stores. I mean, it's still a small,
Mhm.
it's the biggest, you know, business,
Oh, it's huge. I
community.
mean,
So
it's
yeah,
one of the biggest industries
right.
in the
But
world.
you get dealerships that are, they're still considered small businesses, and a lot of, a lot of them are, and
Absolutely.
they're still incredibly successful.
Yeah.
But we would lose all that,
Yeah, I
I
can't
think.
even imagine. So let me ask you something, because
Yeah.
look, it is automotive retail is highly fragmented in so many different ways,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
there's just a lot of different thoughts in unifying and modernizing customer experience, and you definitely cracked a thought open here. So look, there's a lot of tech coming. There's a lot of AI that's going to streamline. Everything is going to get shook up,
Yeah. Yeah.
including every industry, every business. In fact,
Right.
car dealers will be one of them.
Yeah.
When we truly see AI take on
Right.
a
Right.
leadership role,
Yeah.
a development role, in
Right.
being able to modernize the systems and streamline people's
Right.
time, and even hybrid roles, and eliminate roles. And
Right.
so, with that thought on the mind, and knowing there's big companies outside of automotive with the money that see this opportunity, um, do you think we're in for a big disruption? Is there signs that we're headed in that direction? For me, I constantly think about it.
Yeah.
I already see replacement. On a broad scale in dealerships. Personally, for me, I see a lot of writing on the wall. To the scale that you're talking about, I just wonder, what do you think?
Uh, yeah. Companies that I would watch. I mean, obviously Amazon, Nvidia,
Mm-hmm.
big one.
Yes.
But I think they're just gonna. Not in terms of taking over the space, but maybe what they build or could invariably be used. I mean,
Like standardizing, maybe.
yeah. I think that, to me, that certainly the bigger DMS, the Reynolds, CDKs, you got to think Tekion. We can talk about them in a little bit. Even Cox are going to find ways to leverage AI. Probably, they've got the war chests, financial resources to do that. I mean, now, granted, smaller companies can come up and become huge threats, which we see all the time outside of automotive. I think data centers are going to be space is going to come at a premium for companies too. So I'm watching that closely to see whether we see some of that happen. I mean, we clearly do not have enough data center capacity over the next 5 or 6 years.
Are you referencing maybe more data systems that track customer interactions or
well, no, I'm
personalization?
talking actually the data centers needed to push the AI component. Okay. And so it's going to take much more computing power.
I got you.
To get to where some of these players are wanting to get to. And so in terms of financial resources, it's going to become significantly more expensive to build out AI solutions, I think, and it's going to become costly. So these are things that now my thinking may evolve and change on that as we get deeper into it. But like I said, I think some of the bigger players are better positioned to leverage what's coming with AI than maybe some smaller players are. But we'll see. I mean, there's people that are living this every day that probably have better perspectives. But I mean, you and I have been around. I mean, we just remember what was going on during the late 90s and early part of the century in terms of the internet and how that was going to change everything. And
you could never have predicted this.
No, but we're still where we were 30 years ago. I mean, we still have the same two large DMS players, right? I mean, there's been changes, but not nothing like we thought there was going to be.
No, I mean, we're still overall, it's the same process.
Right. So, we thought digital retailing finally was going to take it. Well, some people did. I never did. And I think we've seen that it's not taken off.
Well, let me ask you something about that. So I agree. I mean, obviously, it was there before COVID. It was something that was integrating into my coursework. And and I skipped a section myself because nobody really was interested in it. Then COVID hit, and then it was just explosion. And these companies that they just get on the map. And anyways, it takes off, and people see the benefit of it. But then the customers start coming back, and the doors keep swinging, and the whole thing gets shelved.
Someone forgot to tell the customer. That's how we were all supposed to be buying cars is online. Right.
It was actually surprising for me because I was actually so excited because this is what we have been fighting for 2 decades, at least in my time, and just looking for that painless car buying experience. And all the data points and says the customers want to do their paperwork, 70% of it online, before they come in. But they don't do that. And then the salespeople aren't conditioned to train them that way. But most importantly, the legacy thinking and management, they roadblock it. They don't even look at the systems. They think these are internet leads. I mean, the customer's already chosen their financing. It's, we need to get in there and change the way that we conduct ourselves in the sales process. And anyways, here's what I want to ask you. The whole thing gets squashed for me. I mean, look, obviously some people stay in the game. I am finding it, and I am literally advocating for it, where we at least plant the seed for the consumer in the early conversations so that they know these options are available to them as a value add, as a, an element to increase loyalty.
Yeah.
And to move a deal forward.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think?
I don't know. I bought 3 cars last year
You
between
got a lot of kids.
April and August. Well, we bought a new one for my one son, and he wrecked it 2 months later, totaled it 2 months later. So, and then we had to end up bought a used one, and but went back and bought another new car. And so contrary to what a lot of people think, no, I don't pick up the phone and call a dealer friend of mine and say, hey, I'm looking for such and such to give me a deal, and go in and pick it up. No, I actually go through the process because I want to see what
if we've evolved.
Yeah, no, I want to experience it from a regular
consumer.
Yeah,
standpoint.
and so I asked my, as I'm going through this, and I've done a lot of research on vehicles, and I'm like, why is this so hard? Go to the manufacturer website, go to their build and buy section, figure out which vehicle, you build the vehicle that you want, you get the MSRP price.
Yeah.
They tell you, most of them provide, once you figure out what it is that you want, you go through all the options that are available. I want leather seating. I want this.
And you find out it doesn't exist.
Well, or
you can't get it.
Well, you have that. I mean, but then, and I love General Motors configurator. It tells you which dealerships within a certain, you can pick the distance levels. And
right.
And it'll tell you which dealerships have the vehicle that you want, and whether it's the exact match or not. It's you're missing 3 things. There's 3 differences. And then you see the price. You see the price that the dealer's offering it for.
I've been down this road. I know where you're going.
And I'm going, just send an email to the dealer, or pick up the phone, call the dealer. And if it's not and if you want to do it at ABC Motors versus BDC Motors, and ABC is high, you play them. I don't know what's so hard about pushing the customer to the manufacturer site first, and then, to me, if I'm a customer, that's where you go for new cars. Forget the dealership website. I have not yet seen a dealership website where the configurator or where the inventory listings on the dealership website are customer friendly. It just
well, they're all built by the same people.
Right. I know. Okay. I guess I should be careful here. But to me, the manufacturer site is where to go. It is, if you're a customer. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but look, they shoot it out to 5 dealers. I'm okay with the competition. However, a lot of times those cars don't exist. I mean, I went down this road a year ago, but I had been looking for a full year before that. And then, I was looking for a Genesis, and really, I couldn't believe that they would send me to the dealers, but the dealers wouldn't call me.
Well, so like with GM, and I mean some of the others, and I haven't shopped at every single one, but for GM, it was, the dealership was listed. It didn't send me to them. I mean, I could pick up the phone and call the dealer. I actually went and checked out the inventory on the dealership to make sure that it matched.
Me too.
Because I know,
and in some cases it says that it does match. Yeah. And then you find out from them that they don't have that. Right. That is what I find.
Yeah.
And
that's where it gets frustrating. You're right.
A big roadblock.
And I guess that's where you get to the point where the data needs to be, probably the transaction of the data, or movement of the data needs to be better. And that's part of the fragmentation. But I will say this, on the 3rd vehicle, which is a new vehicle that I bought, I was shopping. I had not reached out to the dealer, but I knew what I was going to buy, and I was waiting for a while. But I was actually in a Bell Tire getting my tires changed on one of our vehicles, one of our many vehicles, and I was bored, and there was a Chevy dealership next door. So, and I had bought the first car so I just went next door to look around, and I told my sales person and I said, hey, I told her, I'm not buying today. I'm just looking, but
Typical.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so I drove one home to my wife just because she's like, well, I'll just take it home to your wife and let her see it because I told her I was buying it for my wife. And so my wife drove it. She liked it, but it was a little big, the Blazer. So then I went back, took back the Equinox, and she loved it. She liked it, and ended up buying that day. So I went in thinking a different vehicle, completely different vehicle. Yeah. I know. So this is why online. I mean, to me, that's why online is so hard to get to. One reason is because you're doing it as a customer. You're buying a car every
5 years,
5-6 years, right?
Now it's 10 to 12.
Yeah, I could. Right. Exactly. So I mean, you're going to want to probably spend your time test driving, getting in them, seeing what's out there, as opposed to just clicking, and it's funny, all this, everyone, all the experts were talking about how young people are buying everything online. That's how they're going to want to buy their cars. But it's not true. They're the ones going into the stores.
That's absolutely right. And you know what? They're the first to pick up the phone. And a lot of people would tell me this. Oh, millennials, they only text. I say, they are literally the people calling your store.
Right. So that's customer surveys. I don't pay any attention to them and there's a lot of companies publish them, but the customer will always say one thing and do another. The behavior.
Absolutely.
It's the behavior. Yeah.
It's nearly 10 out of 10 times. And I hate to even say that because that seems so unrealistic. But look, I'm in this game all day, every day.
Yeah.
I call them squirrels. And we're all conditioned to be squirrels.
Yes. Yeah.
So, I mean, but to your point, it's like, it's hard to do the whole thing online, unless you really know you're just going to buy this. But it's not like these cars. Look at the Hyundai, the Santa Fe. I mean, look at the Corolla. I mean, these cars are like absolutely they're just completely different vehicles than when they originated.
Oh yes, right.
So it's like even if you were driving a Corolla all these years, I mean, you have to go see that Corolla. Okay, like it's not the same Corolla. Yeah, it's different size, it's different look, it's a different car. Yeah, so still room for dealers.
Yeah, I think so. It's
but we got to find a way to make it easy for people, and that human touch that you just pointed out. I mean, that's I don't know how you ever take that out of the equation.
I don't know how we ever make it easier for people, though. Honestly,
I mean, because I have found a way.
Okay,
I have found a way.
I'll
tell you how. I'll tell you the answer. Yeah. Here's the secret sauce.
Okay.
Because look, you and I agree. Competition is what's going to fuel our economy.
Right.
Business. I mean, anyway. But the challenge is a lot of people aren't, as you mentioned, earlier. A lot of people don't know how to ask the right questions. They don't know how to become a high performer and to teach their team members to be high performers.
Right.
So if you have a old, outdated process, you don't have a process at all, and you just let the customer dictate, and you don't have the right questions to help them actually streamline their time. Because if you don't ask them the right questions, look, 5 minutes on a phone call, I can figure out options to show you versus you coming in and me spending 2 hours with you walking the lot. Why don't I just have the options already selected for you that meet your requirements? Let me do my job and have it ready for you. As a customer, you come in, boom, 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 everything. Look, all if you'd have talked to that person ahead of time, they could have asked you the right questions, which this never happens right here. Especially on the area where they contact you the most. And so this is what chews up a lot of the time, in the sales process. And so 5 minutes on a phone call with the right questions, boom, 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 with the right invitation to come in and to give them a reason to come in. You can't just be like, come on in, we'll get your numbers when you come in. Like that's, nobody wants that. So it's about really being able to provide people a more efficient call process or email process or text process or chat process, that's going to be able to show them options that are matches, and then to have the right people staffed and ready to rock and roll. That's the other part, is that people wait, an hour and a half for finance on a Saturday. Like that can, I don't want to hit my head. That literally drives me crazy that we're still there. How are you not on, are these people all on iPads doing their paperwork online if we already have that?
Oh, I know. Right.
Anyways, I mean, I could go on and on and on, but there are a lot of holes and gaps that we are still, and it's a thing you could correct today.
But again, if I'm a dealer, I'm loving that. that there are dealers
Yeah.
that are
Right.
doing it that way, because
Absolutely.
I can sell against that, and I
You
can
can
set
win.
myself apart. Yeah, yeah, and that's the name of the game. I mean, so
Yeah.
I'm and I'll find workarounds and figure out how to defragmentize my data as much as possible.
Mm.
Yeah, it's it's a fascinating world. I mean, some of the same things, and I was at a cars.com meeting
Mm.
recently, a few months ago now, I guess, in Chicago, with a bunch of large dealer groups, some of their large
Mhm.
customers.
Mhm.
And we're whiteboarding, and I'm just observing, listening, and it was fascinating hearing, what are some of the challenges you guys are faced? Well, the same things that were put on that whiteboard were things we were writing about 25 years ago. And I just started laughing. I'm like, wow, okay, I remember these conversations. I mean, and they just don't change. And uh um I so I yeah, I think uh despite despite all of the advancements that we have, we're still
Mhm.
the average car salesperson. I think David Spizak loves to talk about it. Still sells 10 vehicles a year. I mean, a month, a year. He'll God help us, not a year, a month. And that has never changed. And uh, uh, so I think a lot of the legacy behavior still exists and will continue to exist. We have some of the same vendor. Look, we're by now, Reynolds and CDK were supposed to have
I
been
knew you were going to
gone.
say that. Right. Yeah.
And yet here we are, still the
Yeah.
two largest DMS players.
Mhm.
And Tekion's making a valid run at
Definitely.
them. Um, but and I think ownership structure, of both of the three companies really play into that. I still, I don't sleep on Cox. Despite, I mean, they've owned DealerTrack for 10 years now.
Mhm.
Now I guess it's going on more than 10 years. But it'll be interesting to see what they finally end up doing with the DMS there. You know, does Tekion change the game? I'll tell you what to look for.
Okay.
If you really want to know whether Tekion's going to be successful or not,
Yes.
watch the Asbury play.
Mm. Mhm.
Because
As in this recent
yeah,
acquisition?
not well, no, but Tekion has Asbury's looking to move from CDK to Tekion, their
Yeah.
DMS.
Well, I mean, with all the people they have under their belt, that makes a move that's going to change the game.
Here's what to look. Here's what to pay attention to.
Mhm.
The question is whether Tekion can pull that off or not.
Mm.
And it is not it's not as simple as just coming in with a decent DMS. They have to be
It's
fully
the
SOC
support.
compliant, and it's not just support. It's being able to meet the requirements set up by the FTC for publicly traded companies on data reporting. And
Mm.
Asbury years ago in 07 made the move to go to DealerTrack,
Mm.
and that move failed because DealerTrack could not meet the requirements necessary. Incredibly expensive and complicated. So that to me is the question. If
Hmm.
Tekion pulls that off, then yes, then it's a legitimate player and will be a force to be reckoned with. If they don't, then it's it's another DealerTrack play. Just makes it's going to be interesting to watch. But that's what you got to watch.
That right there.
Yeah, that's that's the question. To me, that's the only question for Tekion.
Huh.
Otherwise, I mean, I think it's a legitimate player.
Yeah, for sure.
They certainly have, they've got some, intriguing partnerships at the dealership level too. Um,
Agreed.
but do they have the funds? I mean, will they have to raise more money again to get to this point? And I think that will be the question mark. And for Asbury, it's no harm, no foul. If it doesn't work, no
Yeah.
big deal. No
Right.
big deal. I mean, they're not going to lose a lot of money or sleep over it if Tekion doesn't pull it off. I think, but there's some interesting things under the radar going on. I mean, CDK, obviously.
Does Asbury have how many stores are using Tekion?
Well, no, it's only 4 right now. I mean, they've got 4 stores that are on the pilot phase, and then they're planning on moving. The deal is, they got to move more onto it. But it's just they were delayed because of the whole data fight with CDK, and that lawsuit. I mean, there's multiple lawsuits going on there. I mean, CDK has sued Tekion, Tekion has sued CDK. Asbury is involved. So. There's 4 stores, but over time, I mean, the Asbury with the recent acquisition or the pending acquisition of Chambers, I mean, they're going to be pushing 190. I mean, I think they'll probably end up coming in at by the time they'll probably have to sell a few stores. They'll certainly have to sell, I think, a Lexus store or two to get within the manufacturer requirements. But you're going to be between that 180, 190 number of stores. It's just absolutely crazy growth on the part of Asbury since 2019, and executing incredibly well as a dealer group. And for them, they're the ones, they are an incredibly disciplined client and disciplined dealer group, and are trying to force some change at a couple different levels. So we'll see. But again, it's if it works, great, they win. If it doesn't, they still win. Asbury. So.
Well, I love this information. This is kind of fun to hear your perspective. And I mean, not everybody hears these things all the time. You're so dialed in. You're giving us a lot to think about.
Yeah, well, I've been around for a long time, Jen. So you tend to, I guess, the hair, the gray hair shows it. But some things just don't. It's, I've been fortunate to be, in the room often, and to some extent, and to be, have as close as a seat post as anyone with some of this stuff, and so
you get to be right there in the sector, just experiencing that whole wave of consolidation with these guys, and it's
and I think I've long had the thesis that capital and investment plays a huge role in strategy and innovation in our industry, and I really try to bring some, I guess, over the years, bring some knowledge or education to the industry, both to investors, to help them understand the unique dynamics of the automotive retail space. And I think we're seeing that. I think we've seen a increased sophistication on the part of investors and outside companies that have looked to come in. I think certainly for dealers, understanding the role of capital and even participating and being involved on the investment side, I think helps these startups and entrepreneurs to be much better.
AI startups. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
what about manufacturers, acquiring, more data AI startups to get that edge?
Yeah. You see it more on the production manufacturing side. In fact, I mean, there was a headline today, I think, I forget who it was. One of the manufacturer executives, I think it was out of Germany, was, commenting that we could see AI fully design a vehicle at some point in the near future. And that's, That's very possible. I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
What won't
probably
it be able to
likely.
do?
Right. So, but you know, but manufacturers have certainly invested
Mm-hmm.
in retail startups too. I mean, Toyota has, General Motors has,
Mm-hmm.
BMW, I venture, and some of these corporate venture arms have gone by the wayside, or things haven't really played out like they thought they would. Some of that was due to COVID. There's other challenges. You know, certainly Nissan and Stellantis
Mm-hmm.
are having their challenges. As are, you know, I think the European brands are really, you know, I think the next 5 years for them is going to be, you know, incredibly rocky as China,
Yes.
really exerts its will
Well, I have to agree
in this
because I
space.
travel Europe all the time, and I actually was so surprised because we're not bringing those brands in here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and they are exploding everywhere you go. You as soon as you arrive the London airport,
right.
BYD.
Yep, yep.
You go to any of their shopping centers, boom, they've got a shop. I mean, they are literally infiltrated.
Well, BYD, interestingly, UK is a big play for them, and in terms of even on the dealership level, they've really
Mm-hmm.
come in hard on building out and partnering with dealers in the UK. They're doing the same thing in Japan, and I think
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what much of what we were seeing with Nissan and Honda, all of that talk was Japan trying to head off China, who is actually gaining a foothold in Southeast Asia
Mm-hmm.
and a area of the world that Japan dominated, and now they're seeing China starting to gain market share. And
Mm-hmm.
if Nissan goes down or becomes significantly weakened, it really opens the door even more for China to not just gain a foothold in Southeast Asia, but to also gain a foothold in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So it is incumbent upon them to find a viable partner for Nissan.
Yeah.
But we're seeing, like you said, certainly in Europe, Australia, South America, Mexico, and it's not just EVs. I mean, it's not. I mean, EVs is just a small part of that export. It's more. It's gas vehicles still that are dominating for China. Yeah, the next few years are going to be incredibly. I think there's a lot of questions that we've not really encountered before in this industry. Yeah, and China, AI are probably the two biggest. I mean, EV is up there too, where that ends up. My perspective is 10 to 15% of the market by 2030, no more. A lot of other people disagree with that. They think it'll be 30 to 40. I still think EV market share is going to be considerably down from
Well, it
what
makes
we've.
sense. I mean, I don't really think that it
Right.
makes sense to even fully adopt it. It doesn't
Right.
even make sense to me. It never did, actually.
Right.
I mean, I just always kept wondering, why aren't we doing more hydro?
Or hybrid. Yeah. And then
Hybrid.
yeah,
Hybrid
yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, what do I know?
We'll see. We'll see. No. So much to talk about.
Yeah. Well, this has been a very fun conversation. I really love talking to you. I'm always like through the roof, high energy, but you always bring it down and get me actually to think about, the important elements that are circling our industry, fueling our economy, our jobs. And I just really enjoy your perspective. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Jen. It's been great.
If you like these episodes and my sales game techniques, you should snatch up our latest dealer education program I'm hosting. It's called Jen's Remote Classes, and it's a 1-hour, once-a-week class with me alongside other dealerships all pursuing the same end game to achieve top 10% status in your dealership. For more info, hit me up. All my contact info's in the show notes. I want to hear from you. And follow Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki right now to get notified when episodes like this one drop. This is Jen on the podcast Dealer Talk with Jen Suzuki. See
See ya.